Just leave the sandwich and go through.
Leave the sandwich? Leave the sandwich.
This is 30 Rock. NBC's primetime hit is known for being unconventional, ridiculous, all sorts of adjectives, but at its worst, 30 Rock has a tendency to be a little ham-fisted and overly preachy. But when the show is firing on all cylinders, it weaves its absurdist humor into rich storytelling in an almost seamless way that ends up elevating the show beyond your typical workplace comedy, and putting it into a class of its own. There isn't a better example of how the show executes this than in Season 2's 14th episode, Sandwich Day.
You've never heard of Sandwich Day?
The episode starts with Jack doing what Jack does best, which is behaving like a hyper-conservative and selfish jerk. However, in this opening scene, after this quick jab at Hillary Clinton, we see Jack in a moment of weakness and insecurity.
Hillary Clinton is president, sir. I thought I would just try to scare you out of it. I need you to wake up.
Granted, he's sharing this moment with someone who is unconscious and unable to reciprocate, but this moment highlights what makes this episode pretty perfect. And that's relatability. On the surface, Jack has a tendency to be selfish and sometimes compassionless. I mean, in this scene in particular, he's concerned about cutting his own cantaloupe and moving to a lower floor from his executive suite, which certainly is a situation, but I'd argue that most people would have difficulty relating to that situation. However, moments of weakness like this allow us as viewers to connect with him on an emotional level and more so relate to a situation that would otherwise be difficult to relate to in an incredibly real way. Comedy's at its best when it operates from an emotionally grounded place. The central plot line of this episode is introduced here very quickly. Liz Lemon's "You're Not Gonna Believe This" moment reveals that she's about to be reconnected with Floyd DeBarber, who was a romantic partner toward the end of season 1. This is an important moment for Liz, and a big part of what makes this episode so relatable. For starters, this scene raises the stakes for us, as Liz tells us that due to seemingly serendipitous circumstances, Floyd is only going to be in town for a day and wants to crash at her place. This bit of information sets up the entire episode. Not only does it raise the stakes for our main character like we just discussed, and inject this episode with a sense of urgency, it also allows Liz to make this statement.
I just don't want to embarrass myself. I want to be top dog for once instead of just dog.
It's in that line that we get a strong desire or want from our main character. Desire being another key element in comedic storytelling. Once we understand what our characters want, we've effectively cemented what drives them and can have a lot of fun either giving them what they want or denying them entirely. Our next scene introduces us to the show's tertiary plotline, which also happens to be the title of the episode, Sandwich Day. For NBC comedy fans, this might seem like it borrows a little bit from The Office's Pretzel Day episode, but there's some seriously amazing comedic acting here done by Judah Friedlander, and we get this sort of looming, almost magical anticipation of something fun happening in the workplace. This moment is where the writers of the episode set the hook on the viewers with the premise of future delight and joy. So, just in the first 3 minutes of the episode, we've been introduced to 3 plot lines that will be driving the episode: Jack's insecurity surrounding his demotion, Liz Lemon's relationship drama, and the promise of a celebration of sandwiches. Job security, romantic connection, and joy are things we can all relate to. This next scene shows Jack is moving down to the 12th floor and his assistant is so broken up over it that he begins singing Sarah McLachlan to him. Jack entertains this way longer than he should before his downward elevator ride from Grace. It's in the elevator with Liz that we see Jack clinging to the status he was recently stripped of by lying to maybe both himself and, again, Lemon. Jack's character has been historically portrayed as a high-status character, and the writers are having fun with this element of his character by showing us what happens when we take that away. Now we're getting back to the Sandwich Day plotline. The staff have all finished their sandwiches and are dealing with some degree of post-sandwich mania. The mob mentality sort of sets in, and the crew decides they are going to steal Liz's sandwich. On the surface, this seems like sort of a low-stakes plotline, but it's actually just important to the episode as Jack or Liz's. The Sandwich Day throughline injects a fun and games element into the episode, and it almost serves as a palate cleanser from the more serious thematic explorations of disgrace from Jack and Liz's romantic troubles. Jack romanticizing his job, and Liz, well, a real person. We also get the promise that Liz is going to lose it when she finds out someone took her food. Now, Floyd enters the picture, and Liz goes to some ridiculous lengths to try to impress him. We also get the promise of a dinner date, which entices us into sort of will they, won't they state of mind. Back in the writer's room, the sandwich heist backfires horribly as Liz, well, she explodes and threatens to carve chins into all of the writers' faces if they don't find her a sandwich.
But you're gonna get me another sandwich, or I'm gonna cut your face up so bad you'll have a chin. You'll all have chins!
I don't know, does this raise the stakes for even more? I guess you can call it fun and games. This plotline has now become a quest for the Teamsters' fabled sandwiches. This addition of an objective grips us as viewers, as we are now promised that we are going to figure out the secrets of these magical sandwiches and have, hopefully, fun doing it. Jack enters floor 12, and it's almost cartoonishly horrible. The writers do a great job of making this floor look like some type of wasteland, and it's absolutely necessary to do this because seeing this sends Jack into a frenzy of desperation. So while Jack's shame spiral reaches the 0 hour, we immediately head back to Liz and Floyd's enjoying a post-dinner walk. Jason Sudeikis and Tina Fey have a really amazing chemistry together in real life, well, at least on screen, and that's an important part of what makes this episode so great. We like these characters as individuals, we like them even more when they're together, and we like the idea of them staying together. So we're saddened when we learn that Floyd has to leave immediately to get on a flight, giving Liz Lemon a glimpse of her previously stated desire, and then finding a way to take it away, playing with the audience's heartstrings a bit. In the next scene, Jack's desperation is rapidly on its way to becoming outright mania, as he seems to be searching for meaning anywhere he can possibly get it. It's surprising how fun it is to watch a character struggle this much. That's likely in part because we're all a little afraid of losing what we have. Again, relatability. Liz gets a rude awakening for Floyd, and then, well, actually we'll get back to that in a second. For now, we return to the fun and games as the crew is now confronting the Teamsters about getting one more sandwich for Liz. Teamsters raise the stake, yet again on our hapless crew of fools, by informing them that they will need to earn the information about the fabled sandwich shop via a drinking contest. Another big driving factor of this plotline is the cameo by award-winning dramatic actor. Well, you might not know his name, but here he is. You probably recognize him. Comedy works well when you take it as seriously as a drama, so it makes sense to include an actor who won the Tony and Golden Globe for his performance in the theatrical and television versions of Death of a Salesman. Back in Liz's apartment, we get this great emotional confrontation about Floyd's potential romantic partner, followed by a surprisingly healthy and mature response from Floyd. He reveals that he has an immediate flight to catch, but still wants to talk. It really seems like Floyd and Liz are building something healthy and positive for each other, and again, we like seeing these two together and want them to end up together, or at least the writers hope so. Meanwhile, the crew enlists the help of Jenna, who has been relatively absent for the majority of this episode as the sole contestant in this drinking contest. And as we wrap this all up, Liz's world comes crumbling down as she runs into Floyd just sitting around at a park. It's revealed that he lied to Liz in order to avoid confronting something that might be difficult to talk about. This leads to a falling out between the two, and by the time the scene is over, we as the viewers are just as angry as Liz is. We've lost trust in the relationship we were rooting for just at the beginning of the episode. The crew comes through at the midnight hour with the drinking contest, and Liz finally gets her sandwich. Jack's own struggles with demotion lead him to providing words of encouragement necessary to push Liz into rushing to the airport to attempt to reconcile with Floyd, and it's in this moment where all three of our primary plot lines merge together to create the driving force necessary to lead to the episode's conclusion. Liz ends up wolfing down that sandwich like a champion in this 80s romantic comedy throwback. Floyd and Liz finish the episode in an ambiguous way that leaves us wanting more from their relationship, and the next episode is set up when Liz discovers that Jack has taken a job with the US government. Is this the funniest episode of 30 Rock? Probably not, but funny doesn't always make something better. Sandwich Day is an episode that grips the audience by thrusting our favorite characters into these extremely relatable situations. These situations connect with us as a viewer because we can immediately empathize with the underlying struggles of our protagonist. And that's when comedy is at its strongest. When we are connected to the material, the jokes land better, the stakes raise more naturally, and the plot flows more smoothly. It becomes easier to merge these plot lines together when the thing driving those plot lines is centered around emotion. Focusing on those key elements takes us away from watching something that we think we're going to laugh at and transports us into this sort of sweet spot of actually feeling for the characters we care about. When you add in some ridiculous fun with a supporting cast and a drinking contest over sandwiches, well, you have an episode of 30 Rock that's pretty close to perfect. Well guys, that's it for today's episode of Nerdstalgic. If you enjoyed it, press the like button down below. As always, if you haven't yet done so, click subscribe. That just, helps make sure you see all the videos. And hopefully I will see you guys in the next one.